and then also, is that ice or is that bacteria or other microorganisms, are they alive? And what we're also going to do today is we're going to sample ice from Lake Bonny behind me. We're going to look at these two ice samples, and then we're also going to test other areas around our camp to see if we can find any microorganisms. Microorganisms in Antarctica prefer to live in clean ice or in dirty ice? And then the second question that we're going to ask is, do microorganisms prefer to live in warm environments or in cold environments? Today we're going to look at these 18 different tubes for our experimental design. That we have 9 that are going to go outside and 9 that are going to go inside. Inside each of one of these tubes, we have already pre-made media. And what this media has in it is it's basically just liquid with all the food that microorganisms like to eat. So hopefully when we add microorganisms from places like the dirty ice, from the clean ice, from our hands, from our feet, we hope that it will grow. And then we also hope that we'll see a difference between the ones that we keep in the cold versus the one that we keep inside in the warm. Alright, our first set of tubes that we're going to make, and it's pretty easy, is just our controls. So our number 1 tube is going to be our control cold, and our number 10 tube is going to be our control warm. Basically what these are there tubes with just the media in it. We're not going to add anything to them, and we're just going to keep them sealed up. This way, if we see stuff grow in them, we'll know if we did something wrong with our media when we made it, or anything else that could go wrong in our experiment. So that's what a control is. So the first sample that we're going to put into media is going to be our dirty ice. Obviously, I can't fit this whole thing into my tube, so I'm going to have to break off a couple pieces. So I'm going to break off a couple pieces. Alright, I got a couple of good pieces that look like they have the same amount of sediment in them, so I'm now going to put them into my test tubes. Before I do that, I'm going to dip my forceps into ethanol. And the first one I'm going to add is dirty ice that's going to go into the cold environment. So this is tube number 2. Not very aseptic techniques. The second one is dirty ice that's going to go into a warm environment. So this is not very aseptic. So now we have both of our dirties done. So we'll let them sit in there overnight. Our next set of tubes is going to be clean ice. So let's chip away some clean ice. Alright, we got some good chunks of clean ice there. So take our forceps and dip them into our ethanol again. We'll take the one that says clean ice cold. And we'll put a chunk of clean ice in there. Close it up. Then we have our clean ice warm. Slippery little buggers. And we put a chunk of clean ice in there as well. So now we have our clean ice. For our next set of tubes, we're going to see if there's microorganisms living in the sediment on the ground we walk on. So we first want to put it in there, shake it up, make sure it gets all mixed up. And there's one of our tubes. Then we take our other tube, and we do the same thing. Shake it up, and we're all set. One of the dirtiest places in our bodies is our hands, and I haven't taken a shower in a week, so I can imagine that my hands are going to be pretty dirty. So we're going to see if I brought any bacteria to Antarctica with me. So our next one is we're going to test the bacteria that are on my hands. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of media on the swab. We're going to swab all over my fingers, and then we're going to swirl it around into the media. Get it all nice and gooey. And then we'll swirl it around in there. So there's one. So that's our fingers that's going to go in the cold environment. Now we have our fingers that are going to go in the warm environment. So we use a different swab. Get a little media on it. Wipe all over my fingers. There's some dirty fingers. And swab it inside. Alright, so in a couple days we'll see if I've got bacteria on my hands. Alright, the next thing we're going to test is the inside of our boot liners. These silver guys are what go inside our boots, and after a long day of work, these are probably pretty nasty. So let's check these guys out. Get right in there. Brent has pretty sweaty feet, so we'll see what he's got. There's one. But then we'll get the second one. Yeah, they're sweaty. Swish it around in there for a bit. Recap it. Now we got 2 boots ready to go. We're in our kitchen tent where we make and eat all of our food. So we're going to test and see how many microorganisms we might find on our table. So we'll just swab it all over our table, see what we can get. Swirl it in our media. There's one. Second one. Swab it all over there. Swab it inside. And we're done. Another place where microorganisms might be is in the air. So what we're going to do is we're going to take one of our vials that's going to be kept in the warm environment and the other one that's going to be kept in the cold environment, and we're going to actually just take their caps off and we're going to leave them open for 24 hours, and then tomorrow we're going to recap them and see what we get. So all we have to do for this one is just take the caps off and let them sit without anything on them. For our next set of tubes, we're going to test the ice here on Lake Bonny. So I'm going to chip away a couple of pieces. Alright, looks like I got some good ones. Sterilize. And then now the trick is to catch these guys and get them into these tubes. There's one. There's two. So now we have our ice from Lake Bonny in our tubes and ready to go. Alright, now we have all of our samples in our vials and we're ready to go. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave the cold set outside in a box so that they'll be nice and safe and won't blow away. And then we're going to leave our warm set inside this nice warm polar haven, and we're going to check on them every day to see what kind of microorganisms start to grow in these guys and which ones we're going to see first.